The sun hung low over the Arizona territory, painting the desert in shades of copper and gold. Dust devils danced across the scrubland, and the air smelled of sage and creosote. James McKenna wiped the sweat from his brow and surveyed the fence line he'd been mending all afternoon. His small ranch wasn't much. A modest house, a weathered barn, and enough land to graze a dozen head of cattle. But it was honest work, and it was his. He was coiling his rope when he heard it, the sharp crack of wood splintering, followed by a woman's cry of frustration. James mounted his horse, a patient mare named Bess, and rode toward the sound. About a quarter-mile down the dusty road, he found the source of the commotion. A fine carriage sat tilted at an awkward angle, its rear wheel completely shattered. Pieces of the wheel lay scattered across the hardpan like broken bones. A woman stood beside the wreckage, her traveling dress covered in dust, her dark hair escaping from its pins. She was alone, no driver, no companions, and she looked equal parts furious and desperate. "Ma'am," James called out, tipping his hat as he approached. "Looks like you've had some trouble." The woman spun around, her eyes flashing. For a moment, James thought she might tell him to mind his own business, but then her shoulders sagged. "That's putting it mildly," she said. "My driver abandoned me 5 miles back when I wouldn't turn around, said the road was too rough for the carriage. I thought I could manage on my own." James dismounted and examined the damage. The wheel hadn't just broken, it had practically disintegrated. "This road's seen better days," he agreed. "Where were you headed?" "Copper Springs. I have business there tomorrow morning." James let out a low whistle. "That's another 15 miles, and the sun's going down. You won't make it on foot before dark, and this carriage isn't going anywhere." He studied the woman more carefully. Despite the dust and dishevelment, her clothes were fine quality, and there was something commanding in the way she carried herself. "I've got a ranch about a half-mile back. You're welcome to stay the night. I can fix you up with a wagon in the morning and get you on your way." The woman's eyes narrowed with suspicion. "I don't know you." "No, ma'am, you don't. Name's James McKenna. I run a small cattle operation just over that rise." He gestured vaguely westward. "I understand your hesitation, but it'll be cold tonight, and there are coyotes and rattlers out here, not to mention the occasional unsavory character passing through." He paused. "I promise you'll be safe. You can have my room, and I'll sleep in the barn." The woman studied him for a long moment, as if trying to read his character in his sun-weathered face. Finally, she nodded. "My name is Catherine," she said, offering no surname. "And I accept your offer, Mr. McKenna. Thank you." Together, they salvaged what they could from the carriage, a leather traveling bag, a locked strongbox, and a stack of documents wrapped in oilcloth. James secured everything to his saddle, then helped Catherine up onto Bess. He walked alongside, leading the horse back toward his ranch. "You live out here alone?" Catherine asked as they walked. "Yes, ma'am. My wife passed 3 years ago. Fever took her." The words still hurt, but time had dulled the sharp edge of grief. "It's just me and the cattle now. I'm sorry for your loss." "Thank you." James glanced up at her. "What kind of business takes you to Copper Springs, if you don't mind my asking?" Catherine was quiet for a moment. "I'm looking at a mining operation, considering an investment." It was a vague answer, but James didn't press. Everyone had a right to their privacy. When they reached the ranch, James helped Catherine down and showed her into the house. It was modest, but clean. He'd always kept it that way, even after his wife died. It felt like honoring her memory somehow. "I'm sorry it's not fancy," he said, suddenly conscious of the plain furnishings and simple curtains his wife had sewn by hand. "It's lovely," Catherine said, and she sounded sincere. She ran her hand along the back of a chair. "You can tell someone cared for this place." While Catherine washed up, James prepared dinner. His cooking skills were basic, but he managed a respectable meal of beans, cornbread, and salt pork. As they ate at his small table, Catherine seemed to relax, the hard edge of wariness softening. You fixed this place up yourself? She asked, looking around. Most of it. My wife, Mary, she had an eye for making things comfortable. I just tried to maintain what she built. He smiled. She always wanted to expand, add more rooms, dreamed of filling them with children someday. But that didn't happen. James shook his head. No, ma'am. The good Lord had different plans. They fell into an easy conversation. Catherine asked about ranching, and James found himself talking more than he had in months, describing the challenges of the dry season, the satisfaction of birthing a healthy calf, the simple pleasure of watching sunrise paint the mountains pink. In turn, Catherine spoke carefully about her travels, mentioning cities back east and business ventures, though always in general terms. James noticed she never mentioned family, never spoke of a home she was returning to. After dinner, James insisted Catherine take his room while he gathered blankets for the barn. But as he headed for the door, Catherine stopped him. "Mr. McKenna, I have a confession to make." She looked uncomfortable. "I haven't been entirely forthright with you." James turned, waiting. "My name is Catherine Ashford." The name hit James like a physical blow. Catherine Ashford. Everyone west of the Mississippi knew that name. She owned half the copper mines in the territory, controlled 3 railroad lines, and had more political influence than the territorial governor. They called her the Copper Queen, and it was said she could make or break entire towns with a single business decision. "I see," James said quietly. "I didn't tell you because—" Catherine sighed. "Because when people know who I am, they treat me differently. They want something from me, or they're afraid of me, or they're trying to impress me. You just saw someone who needed help." James absorbed this information. "Well, ma'am, Mrs. Ashford, the situation hasn't changed. You still need a place to sleep and morning's still coming, whether you're a cattle queen or a copper queen." Catherine laughed, a genuine sound that seemed to surprise her. "It's Miss Ashford, actually. Never married. Never had time for it, people say." There was something wistful in her voice. "Thank you for not making this awkward." "Why would I? You're still the same person who needed help on the road." The next morning, James rose before dawn and examined his own wagon. It was old but sturdy. He used it for hauling supplies from town. He hitched up his 2 draft horses and transferred Catherine's belongings from the carriage. Over breakfast, Catherine watched him with thoughtful eyes. "Mr. McKenna, I want to compensate you for your help. Name your price." James shook his head. "No, ma'am. I didn't help you for money. Wouldn't feel right taking payment for doing what any decent person should do." "Most people aren't that decent," Catherine said softly. "Then most people are missing out on being able to sleep well at night." Catherine smiled. "You're a stubborn man, James McKenna." "So I've been told." As James drove Catherine toward Copper Springs in his wagon, she asked him about his plans for the ranch. He admitted he was struggling. The dry summer had been hard, and he'd lost 3 head to illness. "What would you do if you had more resources?" Catherine asked. James considered. "I'd dig a proper well for starters. The creek runs low in summer. And I'd fix up the barn, maybe expand the herd. But I do all right, I don't need much." When they reached Copper Springs, Catherine directed him to the finest hotel in town. As he helped her down with her belongings, she took his hand. "Thank you, Mr. McKenna. You've restored my faith in something I thought I'd lost." "What's that, ma'am?" "The belief that people can be genuinely good without wanting something in return." James tipped his hat. "Safe travels, Miss Ashford." He turned to leave, but Catherine called after him. "Mr. McKenna, I have business interests in this territory that require good people to manage them, people I can trust. If you ever want to expand that ranch of yours, or if you ever need anything at all, you let me know." James smiled. "I appreciate that, ma'am, but I'm happy with what I have. Sometimes that's enough." 3 weeks later, James was in his north pasture when he saw a crew of men approaching his property. His hand moved instinctively to his rifle, but the foreman held up his hands in a peaceful gesture. "Mr. McKenna, we're from the Copper Springs Well Drilling Company. We've been hired to dig you a well, deep one too, guaranteed water year-round." James frowned. "There must be some mistake. I didn't hire anyone." The foreman handed him a letter. It was written in elegant script. "Mr. McKenna, consider this a gift from one friend to another. You gave me shelter when I needed it, asking nothing in return. Let me return the favor in the way I can. The well is paid for, as are repairs to your barn. I learned long ago that there are two kinds of wealth in this world, money and the richness of knowing there are still good people in it. You've reminded me of the latter." Your friend, Catherine James, read the letter twice, then looked up at the waiting crew. He thought about refusing, about his pride, about doing everything himself. Then he thought about Mary and how she'd always said it was just as important to accept kindness as it was to give it. "Well," he said finally, a smile breaking across his weathered face, "I suppose you'd better get to work then." As the crew began unpacking their equipment, James folded the letter carefully and tucked it into his shirt pocket. He looked out across his small ranch, this piece of land he'd built with his own hands, and felt something he had not felt in a long time. Hope. Not hope for wealth or expansion or anything grand. Just hope that the world still had room for simple kindness, for connections between people that transcended wealth and status. Hope that maybe, just maybe, helping someone on a dusty road could matter more than 1,000 business deals. The sun was setting again, painting the desert gold, and James McKenna went back to work with a lighter heart, knowing that sometimes the best things in life come from simply being decent to a stranger in need.